in my English class, we were studying Langston Hughes and Martin Luther King Jr. So how could you not start thinking about anti-racism at that point? I remember there's this poem by Langston Hughes that changed my life. It was called In Explanation of Our Times, and it talks about the different people who have no names, and they're rising up against the big people in the world. And they're causing all this chaos, and the big people are saying, shut up, stay where you're at. You need to be quiet, we're in control here. And that brought a lot of, it brought something out of me, something that I'd never experienced before. And it wasn't really until I got into college when I met a lot of my teammates who are African American, are Black, and they opened my eyes to the issues that they face in their daily lives. Some of my best friends tell me, oh yeah, I have to deal with this, or I have to worry about that. And it's I never had to worry about that. I didn't even know that was a problem. And then reflecting back on the 2 friends in high school who I knew were Black. And I never knew that they had experienced things like that. And I know at some point they tried to talk to me about it, but I think I wasn't ready for it, or I was just so ignorant about the entire conversation or the entire topic that it didn't really open my mind to it. So I think my journey towards anti-racism started just by being aware of what's going on. And then from there, it's just talking about it, learning more about it with learning from the people who experience racism in their normal daily lives, or in bigger events in their lives, and just trying to educate myself and then educate the people around me the best way that I can. That's kind of been my journey so far. I was in a class with a lot of my teammates. We were all in this class together, and it was African American Studies. And they brought up the talk. I was like, what is that? And one of my best friends was like, I had to sit down at 12. My parents told me, I think he was actually younger than that, probably 8, saying you have to be careful because not everyone is going to assume you're a good person. And he says, even though I'm half Asian and half African American, I'm Black, is what he told me. He's like, at the end of the day, they're gonna see me and say I'm a Black man, and I have to wear that on my shoulder, and I have to be careful of it. And since then, I was like, I don't know how you can ever go back from that. You can never just assume that everything is okay when I have friends who are constantly looking over their shoulder, who don't feel safe around anybody. People who are who are vowing to protect the greater community, or their entire community, but are seen as an enemy to those who are living in those communities. I think that's really frightening. We have kids who are having to sit down with their parents and talk about how policemen may not be out there to protect them, or maybe actually out there thinking that they're doing something wrong when they're not, or they're just have Skittles in their pocket, and that's enough for them to become a statistic. So if we can't take that conversation seriously, I don't think there's any way else we could get to anti-racism as a whole country. When I saw that all happen with George Floyd and then Breonna Taylor and Sarah Bland, all this stuff was happening, and we were all stuck at home. It just kind of brought all of my studies to life. It sounds really bad to say the things I'm studying came to life. That's what I'm studying is life. But I was able to experience it, not firsthand, but just kind of see it unravel right in front of my eyes. I went into this major so I could learn about people, and I'm learning about all the bad things that people do to each other. And this in itself was a prime example of how, at the end of the day, we're not just people. Not everyone sees everyone as just people. And seeing that was very disheartening, heartbreaking. And then the aftermath of well, what did he do? What was his side of this? What is the police officer's side of this story? You see this 15-second clip, but what happened before that? Like, what does it matter what happened before that? We're not supposed to be treating each other like that ever. I understand if maybe he could have been acting a certain way, maybe. But you're gonna kneel on somebody's neck to make a point? That's unsettling. And what's unsettling is people were supporting that behavior and still support that behavior and still argue that he was doing the right thing. And I'm not saying he's a bad person. I don't know who he is. But that's not an okay way to show who we are as Americans. It just doesn't make sense to me. It makes me want to cry. I definitely think we should start with conversations just like this one, which I think is amazing that you are holding this conversation and continuing it so that we could talk to everybody else about it. And just talking to everyone around you, or the people that can take it seriously. And if you're going to address the problem, that it be brought up with the goal to achieve peace, not to start a fight. I think that's a really big issue right now with some people I've met with already who they don't want to talk about it to understand, but to prove their point. And I think pride is the only thing getting in our way right now. Accepting that there's something wrong is definitely a big step forward, just accepting that this is a problem, and that means there needs to be a solution, not, oh, we've been living like this for so long, we should just continue. That's not any way we can move forward. For me, it's just trying to educate everyone I know around me and trying to educate myself, definitely, before I could continue talking to other people about what's happening. And that question of, do you think anti-racism could ever be prevalent completely in our society? Seems like such a big, what kind of question is that? No. But it can be if we really try, if we really put in the effort, if the people who aren't willing to listen start listening. But there's, one thing to educate the older generation or to educate the new one, or do both and die trying, So I think my biggest thing is just don't be afraid of talking about it. Try to talk about it as much as possible. Don't forget about it, because it's not going to stop for a lot of people. And not until we are able to talk about it comfortably. I think we could definitely do more. It's mostly about, I'd say, participation from students, getting the students to do these kinds of things, which is awesome that I have this opportunity to be here. But I think just getting students to take on those classes, like that AFAM class that I took, where that opened my eyes to everything going on. We come to college to receive a higher education. And so if we're going to receive this higher education, we should also know about what's going on. And with what's happening right now, I don't feel like that's something we should avoid anyway. It should be talked about in a lot of our classes, besides, like math or chemistry or anything like that. If it has something to do with history or sociology or criminal justice or communications, whatever it can be, talk about it. Use it as an example of how to be a better person, not of what's just wrong with our society, but how to make it better. With just the end with Cal State Fullerton, what we can do is just implement it as much as possible into our learning curriculums. Though I know a lot of it can be handpicked by students of what they can and can't learn, but the more classes that talk about it, the more chance that it's brought up in someone else's eyes, and they can sit in this seat and say, oh, my anti-racism journey started yesterday. Just getting that conversation started, because though it seems to be in our face in social media, it should be in our face. because it's not in everybody's face for any other day. But for a lot of people, it is. For a lot of people, they wear that on their shoulder, like I was mentioning earlier. They have to carry that look over their shoulder, like feel it on their back. And we only had to worry about it for a couple months. That can't end.